In terms of the main lesson itself, two of its distinctive features are the fact that it uses block learning. So block learning is a technique within education that's used in many different contexts. So you'll take one subject and you will learn it in depth for a block of time. Another aspect of the main lesson is depth learning. So these are both characteristics that are used in different contexts. Depth learning is where you're helping the student immerse themselves in an experience so that it's not just surface knowledge they're engaged in. You're trying to immerse them in experiential learning so that they can form the images and the concepts within themselves rather than just pre-cooking the images and delivering it to them. And even though block learning and depth learning are characteristics of the main lesson, I really want to draw a distinction between them and how they're applied in other contexts. I'm going to introduce you to this here. This is the Education's Endowment Foundation that is used a lot by the Department for Education. And what they do is they do meta-level research to analyse teaching strategies. So what's effective? And they rate those teaching strategies according to how cost effective they are and how much impact they have on children's learning. So you'll see here, for instance, that the behaviour interventions, they tend to cost quite a lot of money, but they have a massive impact. Because and we've experienced that certainly in our school in recent times, that if the kids are running wild, they're not going to learn. So first port of call is you need a decent behaviour policy, get them to be able to be still enough to receive and to learn. So that has a really favourable score as an intervention, so it's important to have reasonable behaviour within the classroom. Block scheduling, which I've just mentioned as a feature of the main lesson, it's fairly cheap because you can just reorganise timetables and it doesn't have a massive cost impact. But it's not massively effective. It doesn't have any proven impact that it's more effective than a more sequential curriculum approach. And the reason that I brought this here is that I want to stress that the main lesson is not just a conglomeration of different techniques. It's not just a combination of block learning with depth learning. It has a rationale of its own, and instead of some approaches within contemporary education being maybe a patchwork of different techniques that have been proven, where you jigsaw things together and patchwork it. The main lesson within Steiner Waldorf education has an integrity to it. It's very much integrated within all its teaching strategies are integrated within an understanding of child development and a very clear purpose about what we're doing and why we're teaching. And in that context, I wanted to introduce Sir Peter Lambert, who actually gave a lot of the funding for the Education Endowment Foundation. He was the founder of the Sutton Trust. He was very famous for campaigning for the abolition of handguns ownership in the UK. So he's an amazing philanthropist, an incredibly generous entrepreneur, and with an incredible social conscience. He's a very strong social activist. He founded the Sutton Trust, and one of the things that the Sutton Trust was really committed to was social mobility. So the ability of any one individual child to be able to have opportunities that may not have been afforded to them by the circumstances of their birth, in terms of which demographic class they were born into. And this man here is Damien Hines. He's the current Secretary of State for Education, and he has been very pivotal in his time in government to campaign for social mobility. One of the things that I do want to point out there with that, though, is the reflection that both Peter Lambert and Damien Hines accept the basic structure of education delivery in the UK, which is that even though 7% of the population go to private schools, to independent, fee-paying schools, that 7% will fill up the majority of the top establishment positions. So there's a level of acceptance of a certain social structure within that. And I think that's relevant for us as a state-funded Steiner Waldorf school, because our school, if you like, could have been suggested from a government point of view as an experiment, not so much in social mobility, but in diversity of choice for education. And I think that conversation is still taking place. I think conversation is a better idea for me than an experiment. And so part of this is also then contributing to that conversation.